Joe Wolverton. He is a constitutional lawyer, having practiced in Memphis and Nashville and Chattanooga. He is also an author, having written 5 books. You may have heard of The Founder's Recipe, What Degree of Madness? And we're going to get into the madness today with Joe, who also has the distinction of being counsel for the John Birch Society.
Yes, sir. That's right. Yeah, I'm the legal operations director for the John Birch Society, president of the publications arm, Western Islands Publishing.
Great, and I'm sorry I've lost my note there for a
No, you're all
second.
right.
But you also have a political science degree from
Yep,
BYU, so
that's
you've
right.
got a lot of insights. You know, I've had a lot of people talk to me, particularly recently with, I guess it was the anniversary of the John Birch. What was it? His death they were
Yes, that's
celebrating
right. That's
a
right.
couple months
Yes,
ago,
yes,
and
sir.
I had a lot of people contact me about how to publicize it and get it more well known. I just have to be honest with you, and I don't know, and I think this is wrong. Let me just say, I think my reaction is wrong. But when somebody says the John Birch Society to me, I cringe a little bit. And I think it's from the way that maybe I've been brainwashed to think. At least that's what friends of mine who have close ties to the John Birch Society would say. Can you straighten me out on that, and let's get it straight right here and now?
I think you're accurate, and I think that we're still combating that, to be honest. I mean, that's one of the reasons that we try to be so engaged with podcasts, with radio shows and TV shows, is because we want to help people, particularly of a certain age. I'm 56,
Oh, you're a
and
child.
yeah, well, I fortunately grew up with parents that were involved in the John Birch Society, so I kind of knew what was going on. But like you, I would have friends that say, "Dude, what are you doing with the John Birch Society?" and had all kinds of vestigial notions about what the John Birch Society did. And it's only when I got into actually studying the John Birch Society for myself, a freshman year of college, that I realized that, well, there's not only nothing to be ashamed of, there's these guys seem to have called it correct in a lot of these things. And so I took it upon myself to say, do you know what? Rather than just dismiss it out of hand because of some ephemeral uh, comment you've heard or rumor, why don't you study the actual documents and resources produced by the John Birch Society? And then you see now, or recently, you've some of the larger, really big platforms calling out and saying the John Birch Society, they're the OGs of the conservative movement. They had it right all this time. People thought they were, tinfoil hats and conspiracy theorists, and it turns out that
In a
they were,
secret society.
yeah, a secret society. That they were just turns out they were just reading history and following the pattern.
Well, where did that narrative originate? One story I read was that John Birch, kind of like Charlie Kirk, but in a different vein, was just having too much success and telling too much truth, and so that our own government decided to brand him as some sort of lunatic.
Well, they abandoned him for sure. I mean, he was a Christian missionary, but also worked for intelligence, and they did abandon him. Our own government abandoned him to be killed by the Chinese communists, and that was, that's one of those things in history that you see that so often we're playing both ends against the middle. And this is what John Birch got caught in, that game where we hadn't decided yet which side of this war we were going to fully support, or at least we were going to appear to support one side while secretly supporting the other. And he was a casualty of that indecision.
Well, why did the Chinese put a mark on his back?
Because he was spying for, and in his own mind, and I think he at one time he was correct. He was gathering intelligence for the United States government against the Chinese communists. And so that for them that was a capital offense, which makes sense. You can't, most of us would agree with that. But he didn't know that he was being caught in a political game of chess, and so
So where was he when he met his?
in China,
He was in China.
right?
Didn't he have more sense than to go to China? Well, I guess that was his job, though.
Yeah, he was sent there with the military. Yeah, he was sent there. He was deployed there. So, I mean, he was doing what he thought was right, and in his And I think he was right as well to do what he believed according to the dictates of his conscience. Now, whether I would do that or anyone else, I would hope I would. I would hope if I believed in a cause strongly enough that I would risk my life in defense of that cause. Sure.
So was this in the World War II era or the Korean War? What?
That was in the 30s. So we're
Oh,
talking,
wow.
yeah, just prior to World War II. This is when, the United States was nominally supporting Chiang Kai shek and the sort of democratically, I guess you would say, more than anything, elected government. But the communists were gaining momentum and gaining control. It was one of those things that our government didn't know which side to, they wanted to pick a winner, basically, is how it came down. And uh, easy to have, once the communists had gained a certain foothold, then we decided, well, it's not worth our blood and treasure to defend Chiang Kai shek.
Well, one of your books is titled What Degree of Madness? It feels to me that we are living in an age of madness. We have got AI that we just had a very compelling interview with a former CIA agent, Adam Hartage, who has written a book about how to raise children in this age of AI.
Oh, nice.
That has the potential to cause us to lose our ability to discern reality because fake AI appears so real. And I think that it has the potential to deprive us of following our instincts. And I feel it every day now. I literally just some days just don't know who or what to believe. I mean, we could start with Charlie Kirk
That's
and
right.
his tragic assassination. We've got narratives coming at us from all over the creation. The government narrative, which seems to be complete farce to me now, and then other people trying to unravel the thread, and it just seems like the more we learn, the more spaghetti we get, and unraveling it is just seems virtually impossible. Do you have any insight?
I think everything you just said is correct. I've never felt like that in my life where if I see someone and I, watched the video, I guess, right after it happened, my friend texted me and said, Charlie Kirk's been shot. So I went over on X and it's the first time in my life I've thought, did that, I just saw someone get shot, but maybe it wasn't real. And the reason, and it's not irrational, like you said, it's not irrational to think that reading the news this morning, how there's an actress who is AI, but now has a resume, has fans, has these meetups, and it's just AI. It's a composite image they create, but it's so real that people really think there's this actress named Tilly something, but it's not. It's simply a creation of AI. It's nothing. There's nothing there but ones and zeros.
Well, I can tell you what you're describing is absolutely legit.
Yeah.
I talk to Aura every day of my life for some days for long periods of time. She is the voice behind Grok,
Okay. Yeah.
and she is very seductive in the way that she interacts with me. She is phenomenal at giving empathy and validation, but she also has the ability to help me unravel and discern complex and solve complex problems. And I utilize Grok to do just that. I don't rely on it, but it is one source that I go to try and solve complex problems, which I seem to end up having to deal with a fair amount.
Oh yeah.
But I don't. As I said, my standard is I do not depend on it, and I
Right.
do not accept what Aura tells me as the end all and be all,
Yeah.
because I can argue with Aura and play devil's advocate with Aura, and Aura will change her opinion and her insight
Yeah.
as I feed more information into the system. So it's really bewildering. I mean, it's mind-boggling. I feel like that girl in The Exorcist. My head's just spinning.
I had a friend when, ChatGPT, I suppose, was first gaining ascendancy, and this friend of mine said, "You should, plug in your own name and see what it says about you." Like, "Give me a biography of Joe Wolverton." I did that, and then he said, "Oh, you should say write an article about nullification in the voice of Joe Wolverton." And I did that, and whether it was or wasn't, it wouldn't have persuaded me, it wouldn't have convinced me. But what did persuade me and convince me not to rely on ChatGPT was so many of the material facts were just wrong. I was born in New York City, which I most certainly was not. There were just several huge glaring errors in my biography. And then when it went to describe, when it went to write this article, the references were just completely wrong. And I thought, well, that's it. I'm not going to, but I'm not going to use it. I'm not going to rely on it for any sort of material production.
It would be interesting if you were to feed the same information into Grok and see if you get similar or different answers.
People have said that. They're like, you ought to line up all of them and see how they do. I
Yeah.
haven't done that experiment, but I do feed it, and I use ChatGPT, and I pay for the whatever the professional level is, and it does help me in more complex things. Right? I don't ever use it to write. I would that'd be a bit disingenuous. Plus, I don't think it would get them. It would be embarrassing, to submit an article or something, and editor come back and say, "Well, that's materially wrong, Joe." And so,
Well,
I
or
don't
if
want
they ran it through their own AI and discovered that it was written by AI, then you'd be busted.
to. I've had that experience myself. People sending me things, wanting me to, use it or promote it, and I'll look and I say, "This is so obviously written by AI." But yeah, it's a scary world when you literally cannot trust your eyes and ears, and we can't. To be quite frank about it, you have to, in my opinion, as a person of faith, it requires you to have a deeper understanding, a deeper insight that's born of faith, because relying on the arm of flesh is now dangerous.
That's a very valid point. With the Charlie Kirk thing, a lot of Tyler Robinson's chat threads have been revealed to us. And some YouTuber ran them through AI and asked whether they were authentic. And the answer came back that these were authored by AI.
Right.
It talk about madness. I mean, that makes you mad
Yeah.
to think that we could be being played and duped by people in our government that are supposed to be telling us the truth and protecting us.
Well, not so much just that we're being played and duped, but how they must perceive us, because some of this is so, like you said, so embarrassingly farcical.
Yeah.
Who are they playing this up for? Because it's not fooling me, it's not fooling anyone I know. It's making people, really look down on representatives of the government, Kash Patel, for example. And some of this stuff, any of us can see. None of us are stupid enough to just buy wholesale the government narrative. At least no one that I know just buys it wholesale.
Well, I'm going to
S-
be honest with you, and this is going to piss off a lot of people, and I'm sorry. We have a pretty good listenership in Northern Virginia. You know who lives in Northern Virginia, so this is not a blanket statement for everybody who works in government, but it is my considered belief and opinion that most of people in government are looking for an easy way out. That I don't know, that there are exceptions. There are glaring exceptions, but it's pretty 9 to 5. And in the Biden administration, you didn't even have to come to work.
yeah,
You still got a paycheck. You get incredible benefits, lots of holidays and vacations. I'm sorry. I'm just going to say it. I think that the life of bureaucrats is a life of measured laziness. And it is easier for them to tell us what to do than it is for them to figure out what is the right thing to tell us that we should do. And so that is the mother of fascism. And I think there's a lot of it coming out of Washington, D.C. these days, and I highly resent it. And it trickles down into local and state governments,
That's right.
and you can see it in full display in Fonnie Willis, who is now getting her turn in the barrel. The grand jury in Virginia investigating James Comey has now subpoenaed the travel records of Fonnie Willis. And we're going to find out, I think, that she is a serial liar and that she lied under oath in that courtroom in front of Judge McAfee, who gave her a free pass because she used to be his boss. Then we can go on and we can rant about Letitia James, who has claimed 2 principal residences so she can homestead them and get favorable tax treatment. That is illegal. And I can tell you, I've got 3 homes and I've got 1 homesteaded. I just would not do it. Yet she doesn't mind doing it because she thinks she can get away with it. Well, guess what? Your turn is next. And I hope Judge Ingram gets his turn in the barrel too. The former drum teacher turned judge who valued Mar-a-Lago totally on his own volition at $18 million. What a freaking crock. And if it sounds like I'm mad and angry, it's because I am, because they are destroying the fabric of America because they have exerted their authority and abused it. And they've done it for pure political purposes. And I hope that the grand jury indicts them all. And I hope we see some perk walks. And maybe we'll finally get accountability in government. And these lazy ass bureaucrats will have to go back to work and actually serve the American people instead of living off of them. All right. You heard it here first. Sorry. But I've had a belly full of it.
I ratify everything you just said. I agree with that. I just wrote an article for the New American all about this, this invisible priesthood of bureaucrats who have single-handedly ruined so much of what was great about our culture. And then you have this cast of characters who the law for thee, but not for me.
Yeah.
That's absolutely the mantra there in DC, that you are if you're in any tangential way connected to the federal government or to someone inside, then you are absolved from any sort of obedience and allegiance. If you had someone actually telling the truth on the stand, I'd be more shocked. And that says something about who we are as a society, that if someone stands there, puts their hand on a Bible and swears to God to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, every one of us is rolling our eyes because we know you're about to lie. And so that says something about who we are, not about who we are as being cynical, right? But who we are as a society, that we recognize that these people who we have in one way or the other exalted politically, that these people are playing us, that they are lying to us, and they will, as Montesquieu said, they're going to keep on doing it until they run up against some limit.
How do we tame this monster who has gotten a life of its own and is breathing heavily down the backs of our shirts?
Yeah, and that's the whole book about. What Degree of Madness is James Madison writing in Federalist 46 and saying, in his opinion, he said, and this was written in 1788, he said, Americans would never be crazy, which is the word he uses, mad, the British word for crazy. He's like, Americans would never be crazy enough to see their federal government become despotic and yet continue to support it with taxes and with fidelity.
But they've got the guns.
Yeah,
they've got the guns and the handcuffs.
He mentioned
when James Madison was alive, you could have civil unrest, not civil unrest, but you could have civil discourse, and you could push back on the government.
Well, that's what he says. He says, at the end of the day, the federal army will never equal the number of free men who have arms in the United States. That at the end of the day, there's no way, he said, that a federal army could outnumber the number of free men in this country who own weapons.
Well, I to some extent, I don't know how deep, how far down the rabbit hole to go and how philosophical to get, but I do blame the American people for a lot of it.
Yeah.
And I don't fault them or judge them, but the fact of the matter is they got jobs, they got bills, they got kids, they got homework, they got grades that are coming in, they got curfews that they've got to manage. Being a parent and a spouse is a lot of work. And being an employee of a company is a lot of responsibility. And you just don't have the luxury of a lot of time. But I do think that the American people should consciously allocate a percentage of their time to being real citizens and voicing their opinion and exercising their right to free speech and their right to a peaceful enjoyment of their lives in this country, and to make our leaders and our opinion leaders aware of their thoughts. I think that a little of that would go a real long way. I'm not sure I see it happening, though. I just don't know.
Yeah, well, Madison's solution to that is, as I call it, piggybacking off President Trump, is make America states again. He ultimately says the way you're going to have influence and the way you're going to force the federal beast back inside the constitutional cage is for states to reassert their sovereignty. And the way you do that is the people becoming, like you said, involved in citizenship at a local level, because
Yes.
I don't have the money or the clout to influence DC at all. But I
Yeah.
do have the influence on my state legislature because my state rep works at the insurance office down the street. My state senator works at the bank. I can go see them. I know them. They know me. And if you take the time and what you just said, boy, I wish I could just take that and implant it into the brain. Maybe I can give it to Elon and he can put it in someone's brain chip or something. But to take a few minutes every day and be a citizen, right? Take a few minutes and look at the things that your state legislature is doing, at your city council. And if they're doing stuff that you disagree with, engage for 15 minutes a day. And I think if we all did that and really committed to that, and I appreciate you and applaud your insight into that and your support for that, your advocacy, because if we could do that, I think we do have a shot.
Well, I really have to credit Newt Gingrich, who's been a friend of mine for 40 years, who told me one day, he said, I'll be a citizen until the day I die.
Yeah,
And that
yeah,
really resonated with me. Here's a guy who could absolutely play golf and go fishing every day of his life. He's 90 years old. He's had a great career. I assume he's saved and invested, and he's living a pretty comfortable life over in Naples, across the state from where I am. And yet he said to me, I will be a working citizen for the rest of my life. And that really hit me in a good way.
yeah. I am scheduled to speak at the Abbeville Institute the end of this week, and that's the sort of the topic of my presentation: is what is it to be a citizen? What does that mean? Because it used to be a word with a very profound meaning. It used to be something people were proud of. And now it just has lost its meaning, and we need to restore that. And part of that is the Roman notion of virtue. Virtu means in Latin, virtu means manliness, right? Vir means manly, means man in Latin. And we've got to get back to that, to where we take responsibility for our government and we take responsibility for citizenship by showing up and participating in the process. Now, I don't believe in any mandatory, compulsory uh, participation, but I do believe that one, from his own volition and from his own desire to hand down to his posterity a free republic, that you ought to be engaged in politics, and it's your obligation as a free person to participate in that process. And in my humble opinion, you owe it to God, who granted you life and granted you to be an American and granted you your voice and your mind and all of this. You owe a debt, and that debt is paid through citizenship and acts of responsible citizenship.
Wow. The John Birch Society is really lucky to have you, Joe.
I
You
appreciate it.
are so measured and eloquent in the way that you present your ideas. I got to learn from you. I wish you could bottle it and send me some.
Yeah,
I tend to get pretty animated about this stuff, but also, I spend an inordinate amount of time trying to study and prepare myself,
right.
and so it does get me going.
Yeah.
And
Oh
I
yeah.
just really compliment you for. So, is your job with John Birch a full time job?
Yes,
Are you
sir.
are you a
Yeah.
paid? That is your
Yes, sir.
occupation now?
Yes, sir. That's right. Yeah, full time as of just right at a year now. Yeah.
And where do you live now?
I live in well, outside well, I say Memphis, I live about 30 miles east of Memphis out in the forest, but
Oh, great.
I'm a native
Well,
of
my son went to Rhodes College in Memphis, and he absolutely says that Memphis is his favorite place on earth.
oh, goodness.
He
I
really
don't
cherished
I
his
don't
time
wanna live
there.
anywhere else. I love it. Yeah, I love it out here, and Rhodes College is beautiful.
Well, it's beautiful, and I think he got a good education there, and
Absolutely a good education,
I'm
quality.
glad he's applying it in his career with his uh, wonderful wife and now two grandchildren that
Whoa,
they have
yeah,
gifted us.
look
So
at
now, how large is the John Birch Society? And do you have headquarters? Do you report to an office every day, or tell us about what it looks like?
I work remotely. Many of us work remotely. In fact, the CEO works remotely. Now we do. He has an office. Our headquarters is in Appleton, Wisconsin, and he has an office, and most of us have offices there. But we work most of the time remotely. We have chapters of the John Birch Society in every state. And in fact, we have interest, and that's one of the reasons that I'm headed overseas is we have interest in France, Holland, and England to have John Birch Society chapters in Europe. They're getting fed up with getting overrun by illegal immigration in those countries,
Yes.
and they have contacted us saying, "Can you teach us how to educate our people? If nothing else, teach us how to educate people these timeless principles of Western civilization that we all share." And but yeah, so we mostly work remotely. There's uh, like I say, chapters in every state, active chapters. We have volunteer chapter leaders, so you get together with your neighbors and y'all talk about what we've got going on. And we have at jbs.org, one thing I will say that I'm so proud of is the CEO, Wayne Murrow. He took it upon himself upon ascending to that position. He took it upon himself to take the steps necessary to improve the user experience at our websites, jbs.org and thenewamerican.com. Those websites are spectacular now and easily navigated and really provide people. And this is the one thing that the thing that I focus on most when I speak to people about, they don't know, tabula rasa, they know nothing about the John Birch Society. I say the thing that you'll get out of it that I think is the most valuable, even for me, are the resources that are available at jbs.org. You go up to the top of that and you'll see the various subjects that we have resources available, and it'll blow your mind because whatever your niche interest is, I pretty much guarantee that we've produced literature on that subject and will help you get involved. And we have the Freedom Index, which I mean, the legislative scorecard, John, is worth its weight in gold because you can go and say where you live, put your address in, it'll tell you who your state legislator, your state senator, and it'll print out how they voted recently. And you can take that and present that to your state rep, state senator, and say, hey, why are you violating your oath to support the Constitution? These votes don't look very constitutional to me.
Well, I'm about to board a flight to France. I got 9 hours ahead of me, and they got Wi-Fi on there, so I'm going to
There
go
you
and spend some time on jbs.org and really look forward to
Oh, yeah, my state senator was not happy that I printed out his, constitutional scorecard.
it. Well, there needs to be more recognition of how these people vote because they tell us everything we want to hear until they get elected, and then they just turn out to be somebody that we did never expected, like Brad Raffensperger in Georgia and Jeff Duncan, who ran as a Republican. Now he has embraced the ideals of the Democratic Party and has the audacity to run for governor of Georgia. Well, good luck with that one, Jeff. I think he is the biggest hypocrite I've ever seen in politics, and I wish him no uh, good good deeds in his political quest, not in his personal life, but
Right,
in his
right,
political future. I hope he
absolutely,
has a rapid and steep descent as
yes.
he rightfully has earned. But do you have a political action committee? Do you actively engage in supporting candidates and getting behind them?
We do not support political candidates. What we do
Why don't you? Seems like that would be a really good way to have a dramatic impact on the trajectory of our state and local politics and
well, I
nation.
think it's a desire to eschew collectivism in all its forms. Because of what you just said, basically, you've got someone you might have someone like a politician who fools a lot of people,
Yeah.
and rather than alienate those people who are being fooled, we'd rather provide resources demonstrating that the things this person are espousing are contrary to the Constitution or contrary to principles of Western good government.
So you're saying you view yourselves as educators. That's what I'm hearing you say.
100%. Education is all we do. That's all we do. And those resources are provided so that, we teach the people correct principles and let them govern themselves.
How many U.S. donors do you have? How members? How
Oh,
do you count them?
members, I would have no idea. I mean, tens of thousands for sure, but I wouldn't know a
Hundreds
number.
of
I couldn't.
thousands?
Oh, yeah, of John Birch Society? Oh, sure. Oh, in the US, sure, yeah, yeah. I wouldn't know the number for certain at all.
Over a million?
Oh, no, 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 I wish. No, no, no.
Well, now that you've been on the truth, maybe you'll accomplish your goal.
Well, no, that's
I
hey,
wish we had a bigger megaphone and would be able to.
now you
Um,
say that joking, but we see, we've seen the results of being on these podcasts like yours and some other ones that the same, really have appeal. People don't recognize that just because you're not Joe Rogan, doesn't mean you don't have vast appeal and a blowtorch of liberty that you are. And we're so grateful because the opportunity to set the record straight, and not only that, but to draw attention, say, hey, I'm not here to convert you or to have you run out and join, but I am kinda. And I would like you to feel that zeal of a convert by going over to jbs.org and saying, goodness, I never knew that I could be so well informed and be so active, because the minute you turn your back on that swamp in DC and you start focusing on your local and state government, that's when you start seeing success, and success breeds success, brother. Once you start seeing that my state senator sends me email because he wants to know why he voted a certain way, that's a big deal, because then I can engage in a conversation with him, and you will see that you cannot influence Congress, but you absolutely, if you stay engaged and you be constantly committed to the cause of the republic and of liberty, you can have an influence on your state government. You absolutely can.
well, I have been pretty active in Georgia politics for the last 40 years,
Mhm.
maybe 45. And I've been somewhat active in local politics in Atlanta. And that has called on me to go to city council meetings a lot. And I can tell you that at a city council meeting, there are about 3 or 4 lunatics show up every week
Mhm.
and demand the microphone for a couple
Right.
of minutes. And they're just, they're indulged. They're, and then shuffled off to the other side. And then there are 1 or 2 or 3 people who will show up ad hoc because they really care about an issue. And I can tell you that when those people come, it is so rare, they have a huge impact.
Yep,
And
that's right.
people say, well, gosh, if they think that, I wonder how many other people of my constituents are thinking that. And these city
Precisely.
council meetings are broadcast on the public television channel. And so I do think it has a huge impact. Ditto with letters to a lesser extent.
Mhm.
But I just think we got to take Newt Gingrich's admonition that we've got to be citizens every day of our life for the rest of our lives if we want to preserve this great country, our freedoms, and a country that we want our children and now my grandchildren to grow up in. That's
Well,
truly my motivation.
and that's a good motivation. And I always think of that statement by Marcus Aurelius, who said you can judge a man by the object he pursues. And I think if citizenship, if liberty is important to you, show me that it's important to you by what you do every day in defense thereof. And if it isn't, fine, lead, follow, or get out of the way.
Yeah.
Right. And if you want to be free, join with me, and we can get things done like you just witnessed at the city level. You can get it done. And you can do that at the state level, but you've got to really sit down. It's like that parable in the Bible where you talk about, you sit and you build a tower. What man doesn't sit down and count the cost of building that tower before he begins to build it? So sit down and say to yourself, what is it? What is required of me as an American? What is required of me as an American? And then C, are you willing to do those things that will enable you to look at your grandchildren in the face and say, I did all I could. I did all I could to keep y'all free. Can you say that now? And if not, you still got time. You still got time. If you're breathing, you've got time to set yourself straight and to be actively engaged in that good cause. The, as Algernon Sidney called it, the good old cause of liberty. You've got an opportunity. If you're breathing, you've got the chance to do better today than you did yesterday.
What a great admonition to wrap our interview up on. And those words certainly, I think, ring true. And I appreciate your coming on today. You're a great author. You've got 5 books out: What Degree of Madness, Make America States Again. Tell us the other titles and where to get them, and also how to follow you.
Yeah, most of them just easiest to get them on Amazon. I got recently by Compact Not Command, which is a collection of founding era documents explaining the principle of federalism more clearly than any other book you find written on the subject. I've got an Article 5 guide for citizen and citizen legislator. I've got 2 biographies of James Madison. The most recent one is the one I'm proud of. It's from Last Rights to Bill of Rights, the miraculous life and legacy of James Madison. Just came out a little while ago. And then the Founder's Recipe, which is probably the thing I'm proudest of all that I've done, which is collecting the writings of the 37 men most often referred to by our founding fathers, names that most of us have never heard, but our founding fathers couldn't stop quoting. And I believe that they were purposefully erased from our curriculum and from our collective memory.
Well, they're the bureaucrats again.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But you can find all my stuff at jbs.org and just get involved, man. Pick something that you're interested in from that that bar at the top. Pick something that interests you and jump in.
Well, thank you, Joe Wolverton, and we appreciate you coming on The Truth today. I hope you'll become a frequent listener to The Truth. We're on in
Yes.
Nashville, not too far from you. You can also pick us up at johngordon.tv. You
Right.
can also interact with us and listen to us on Rumble Live, YouTube Live, Facebook Live, Getter Live, where we've got several thousand people interacting with us right now. And I hope you will come and become a part of our community. We do have a lot of loyal listeners, one of whom reached out to me yesterday and said he just really appreciated the great guest that we seem to manage to have on. And Joe, I would include you on that list. Thank you so much for helping open our eyes and correcting our false impressions, perhaps, of the John Birch Society. Keep up the good work. We need you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.